Been a great day so far. You've had a good day? Learned a lot about IoT? Okay, well, we have a absolutely phenomenal closing speaker, absolutely dynamic woman who I've had the pleasure to meet and get to know a little bit over the last few days, Sandy Carter. I'm going to spend a little time on her introduction because it really is unbelievably impressive. So Sandy is responsible for IBM's worldwide focus on building ecosystems around core growth areas, cloud, mobile, social, big data, and analytics. The ecosystem, which includes partners, developers, ISVs, entrepreneurs, influencers, academics, and venture capitalists, drives approximately 1/3 of IBM's revenue and is a critical element in IBM's overall strategy. Perhaps most important to you all, she's also responsible for the award-winning Global Entrepreneur Program, which has delivered over 2,000 mentors to help startups and entrepreneurs expand and grow. So this is a woman to know. Sandy recently was named to Forbes Global Top 40 in Marketing and received the Professional Businesswoman of California Industry Leaders Award and was named one of the top 20 influencers by Cube. She's been named top 10 in social media, so there may be an interactive section there where she needs your help. Top 50 in social business influencers and one of the 10 most powerful women in tech. She's also passionate about women's leadership, a founding member of Women in Technology International and a member of the Executive Advisory Council. She's the founder of IBM Superwoman Group, a community of approximately 20,000 women worldwide. She grew up in Texas, has no accent that I can discern, has 2 daughters, and as you will see, she suffered a recent accident while on business travel. And I understand that Sandy's going to tie all the threads of the day together for us in her talk. And in reference to her accident, Sandy, I wish you to break a leg in your talk this afternoon. So, welcome.
So could I ask for a little help this afternoon? So some of you may have seen a social media leaderboard that's based on retweets. I just tweeted something, and I would love to be number 1 because I understand there's this one guy from TiCon that's never, ever been ousted. So would you guys help me and go out there and retweet Sandy_Carter? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk today about the Internet of Things, which we've heard about all day from absolutely brilliant speakers. And I do want to thank TiCon. This is my first TiCon, and I have to say, it won't be my last because everybody I've met is incredibly impressive, from Ron that you just heard introduce me to so many people that I've met here. So what I want to focus on in this final keynote is what really matters from all we've heard about from Internet of Things, especially around how to make money from this particular growth segment. So let's go and get started. A couple of, I think, really interesting things that we've heard today in terms of some of the numbers. So those 26 billion new devices and Internet of Things units that we've seen out there is going to drive an additional $300 billion of product and services. So what I want to focus on is how do you get at that additional incremental revenue as an entrepreneur, as a startup, because we're already seeing the venture capitalists invest in this area. 2 of the facts that I thought were most interesting was the increase of VC investment in this area, 50% year over year, and about $1 billion of investment in Internet of Things companies in just the last year in the US alone. So clearly there's a lot of investment here, but let's talk about how you as an entrepreneur might look at this and really drive some growth out of it. So you'll see I try to use the tie icon. I didn't know I was going to be this big of a fan of tie. But I wanted to frame what really matters in 3 points. The first one we're going to talk about is the T of tie, which is about the right focus. As you go forward, I want to show you what we believe are the top areas to help you focus on that money-making venture. Secondly, the I, integrated solution. So it's not just about the hardware. It's going to be about the data, the analytics, and what we heard this morning, cognitive as well. And the third, which I think is the crowning moment, is going to be that ecosystem that you need to build, and hopefully you'll use companies like IBM to help build that ecosystem. So those are the 3 takeaways, and what I would like to do is really walk through each of those so that you can see what IBM views as being some of the most critical elements in building your business. So let's start with that T first, the right focus. You know, I think it's really interesting. I don't know how many of you play games. Anybody gamers out there? You know, when you play the game in 3D, it's just so crystal clear. So I thought, you know, for the right focus, what would be that same 3D image? And as we looked over companies who are making money in this space, we found 3 common characteristics in that focus. The first is around domain knowledge. The second is around what was considered the driver of value. And the third was around design. So if we look at that domain knowledge, unlike some of the other eras of the internet, where you could do a really great horizontal solution and be really successful, if you look at the Internet of Things and all the examples that we heard about today, something kept coming up that was really resoundingly consistent. And that was the domain knowledge that was applied. So as an entrepreneur, myself as an entrepreneur, one of the things you really want to investigate is what is that domain-based skill that you can bring to the table to create that competitive advantage. Now I listed out here, we did lots of research to look at the opportunity for the future. As I'm sure each of you as an entrepreneur is looking at saying, where should I invest? Where should I place that bet? For the next 3 years, the investment opportunities we found around domains or industries, number 1 is automotive. Now we know automotive moves a little slow, so a lot of this was bolt-on in the automotive space. Number 2 is around healthcare. We've heard lots of examples of healthcare today. Number 3, industrial, and number 4, retail. So if you're looking as an entrepreneur to start building a business, leveraging your skill, your domain expertise to build that competitive advantage, I would look and examine and say, do we as a company, do we as an entrepreneurial team have that skill and that depth of knowledge in one of these areas? Because as we create our IoT solution, one of the things that will differentiate us will be that domain knowledge. So again, unlike other areas of IT, other areas of the internet of the past, the Internet of Things will really reward those companies that can showcase that domain expertise and that domain knowledge. Now, the second thing that we find really important in that right focus is having the right driver of value. At IBM, I run something called the Global Entrepreneur Program, and we have competitions every year. Last year, we had about 1,800 entrepreneurs come in, present their stories, and one of the things that we noticed from those 1,800 entrepreneurs, those who were investing in this space, those who did well, not just to generate revenue, but to also generate profit, were those who recognized a clear use case and was targeting the right buyer. What do I mean by that? One example, in fact, we met with this week that told us their turnaround story as an entrepreneur was they took their Internet of Things solution and they were targeting it at the IT department. They had done multiple calls to IT trying to sell their solution. When they re-looked at the value, part of the coaching session from the Global Entrepreneur Program, they went back out and took their solution instead to the facility manager. And just by reshaping the value to someone who really cared about the value of that particular Internet of Things solution, completely has changed their fortune as they've gone through. Now this applies to healthcare. You know, are you targeting the doctor or the purchasing department? It applies to all areas, but especially because Internet of Things is new, it really, really matters the buyer that you're targeting and the value that you're presenting to them. And then the third thing of the Ds may be a surprise, but from the work we've done in the last year, we found that design is a crucial factor today, but as we look at the future and the opportunity for the Internet of Things, design will become even more crucial. Now, if you look at some of the trends here, you'll notice recently, for instance, at Stanford, their D school, their design school, has really resurrected in terms of power and significance. The number of students that are applying to the D school has also gone up significantly. And so what we're seeing is this focus on design, not just user interface, the design, the workflow, how you're pulling things together for that business outcome really makes a significant difference. So some of the things that you want to think through in that design is as you're going out with your solution, you want to look at things like innovation experiments. How can I pull together a wireframe and test that out really quickly with potential users, going back to that last case we talked about? How do we make sure that we're flowing this in a way that's consumable, especially in the Internet of Things, even if you're going after B2B, the consumability, the user interface, plus the overall design will make a difference. And I'll just challenge you, even think about your vacuum cleaner. Dyson today, anybody out there have a Dyson vacuum cleaner? Dyson vacuum cleaner sells and retains its competitive differentiation on design. And we see the future of IoT, that design, that focus on the D, will make a huge difference as you move forward. Now let me give you a quick example if I could. If I could go to the next slide, please. This is an example of one of our entrepreneurs based out of Latin America. It's a very simple Internet of Things concept, but simplicity and design is really good. So in this particular case, focusing on the retailer, the domain of retail, one of the things that they found is how do folks buy today? So I have a 13-year-old daughter, and if she tries on an outfit at a store, and she says, "Mom, what do you think about this outfit?" and I give it a thumbs up, do you think she's going to buy it? No. So all of you have teenage daughters, so you know. But if her friends like that outfit, will she buy it? Absolutely. So look at this really simple Internet of Things example from one partner, where they're looking at their domain expertise. This partner has a focus on retail. What they've done is they've looked at the value of a store merchandiser, so a very specific value prop, and they've placed on the hanger the number of Facebook likes that that particular garment or outfit has. So you'll see on the garment an overall number of Facebook likes, but really understanding the design elements, they've also enabled you to very quickly enter your Facebook ID and see how many of your friends like that particular outfit. Very interesting, right? Looking at the domain expertise, the driver of value to a specific buyer, and then looking at the simplicity of design. By the way, the results in this piloted store down in Latin America has seen growth in some seasons of up to 41% from the outfits that are on these social hangers. So our first element, our first takeaway is really looking at that right focus, those 3 Ds, looking at the domain, the driver of value, and design. So one of the pieces of advice I have to a lot of entrepreneurs is go hire a great designer. Stanford has a fabulous D school. They are popping up everywhere. There are schools with strength, but make sure you don't forget that particular element of your IoT strategy. Okay, let's look at that second piece. This is the I in our tie, which is integrated solution. Now, I know many people think that Internet of Things is really about the hardware. It's about the sensors, it's about the connectivity. But I'm going to show you some numbers that will show you that the Internet of Things is really about the data. It's about extracting value from that data that's coming in. Whether that happens to be a wearable device, a sensor on a tire, sensor on a battery. That data is what's crucial. So as an entrepreneur, what I would think about is not just the connectivity element, not just the sensor element, but what goes behind that you can extract value from. So for us, it's about 3 elements. It's about collecting the data. How do you collect that data? Is that data collected from a set of homogeneous devices or heterogeneous devices? It's about analyzing the data. So what analytics do you apply to extract the value from the data? And very shortly, it will be about the cognitive side that you saw featured this morning. That cognitive capability where you can optimize for the client based on the analytics and all that big data that has been applied. So let me just show you the numbers because I'm a businesswoman and I like to see the numbers. So if I look at the long-term opportunity, this happens to be one report from Harbor Research, just published, and it really illustrates this point of opportunity. In the short term, by the way, there is money to be made in the short term on the hardware, on the sensor, and on the connectivity product. But as the report states, it will go up like a rocket ship and crash equally as fast and hurt just as much. The long-term bet, what will make a company a long-term success, will be its focus on data and analytics. That's the long tail of the equation and even has profitability in the early stages. So as you're looking at your solution, if today you start with a sensor or the hardware piece, make sure that you're evaluating very quickly how you're going to collect that data, how you're going to analyze that data, and eventually how will you optimize that data for the customer. That is really where the opportunity lies. So let me show you a couple of examples of companies doing this today that are looking at that collection of data, analyzing of the data, and then optimizing the data. So this is one example from IBM, which is Truth in Advertising. That's the company I come from. I like this example because what it shows is Honda is looking at a homogeneous set of devices. So you still need sensors, but it's only looking at its own sensors that it has placed on its own batteries. But the critical element of success for Honda is the fact that from those sensors, they are collecting and extracting data with IBM, understanding how the batteries operated in certain conditions. They are analyzing that massive amount of data that's coming in from hundreds of thousands of electrical vehicles across the globe. And most importantly, the value they consider most competitive is the way that they're optimizing that data so that they can increase the performance of their electrical vehicles, which for them will be a critical success factor. Now, as we looked at this example and working with those 1,800 entrepreneurs as well, we also found in this type of area of extraction of value some other opportunities that you may want to look at that are ripe for harvesting. Include the way you might look at and help a company out with maintenance contracts, very hot area right now. Warranties and recalls, another area with lots of opportunity and potential for lots of profit. And customer service. So an example of leveraging collection of the data, analyzing the data, optimizing the data, in this particular case of a set of homogeneous devices and sensors inside of this particular battery. Let me do one more quick example here as well. This is another one of our global entrepreneurs. It's called On Farm. Now, if you think about the farming industry, 40% of the revenue generated across the world comes from food. With the population doubling, we need higher productivity from all those farms and those agriculture facilities across the globe, not just in the US, across the globe. So how do you do that when really we've maxed out of fertilizer? You leverage and use the Internet of Things. So the way that this company is extracting value and growing their business is On Farm has worked with sensors that are coming in from the weather, are coming in from crops, are coming in from people. So people are another interesting input device because many people have long served in the farm industry and have gut feels about things that matter, and then a whole set of sensors. In fact, talking to Lance, the CEO of On Farm, in 2000, there were 0 sensors in farms across the world. By 2020, there will be 100 billion sensors collecting data across the world in farming. So what they're doing to optimize and to really maximize their company is they're collecting that sensor data today, and that includes weather data from Deep Thunder from IBM, and they're analyzing that data, and they've already started to optimize the data to help predict, for instance, irrigation needs, maybe based on the change in weather, based on changing conditions of the crop, or insight that comes from a farmer, him or herself, based on that information. And On Farm today has been very successful as a startup based on this collection of the data, analyzing the data, and optimizing the data, again, using heterogeneous sensors that will exist not only today, but you see the huge growth in the future as well. Now, looking at entrepreneurs again across the world, other opportunities here is a company that could use and leverage multiple protocols and technologies to build from data. So that heterogeneous space is going to be wide open. And then the ability to reconcile and merge that unstructured data from multiple sources coming in will be another hot potential for strong return on investment for an entrepreneur or a startup company. Okay, one more example here, and I just met with Streetline. They're based here in Silicon Valley. Streetline was also a global entrepreneur, and they're also the winner of the Global Entrepreneur of the Year from IBM in 2010. And one of the things that they have is not only sensors around parking areas, but they have the ability to look at those sensors and optimize for cities to make them smarter cities. You can see it's all done with a mobile device, and they are collecting data around parking. Now, you guys know I live in New York, so I'm hoping they come to New York really soon because they're collecting data on parking spots, whether those parking spots are in a garage, on the street, or at a university campus. They're analyzing that demand, and they're doing that by hour of the day, by location, by events that might be happening. And so they're helping cities to really optimize, not just to reduce congestion, but also to generate additional revenue. In fact, in the city of Los Angeles, they've increased by triple digits their revenue coming in because they've optimized the parking. It turns out that more people come into the city and pay for parking when they know they can find a parking space. So this is a great example of a company that started out really focusing on the connectivity and the sensor, but finding out very quickly in their entrepreneur venture that what really mattered was collecting the data, analyzing the data, and optimizing that data as they move forward. Okay, our last area I think is probably one of the most crucial as well. So we talked about the right focus, really focusing in on that right domain and value and design. We just talked about that integrated solution that really focuses in on the data. That's where the money will be. All the reports show that. But the third element really focuses in on the ecosystem that you need to build as a startup, as an entrepreneur, to have a huge impact in the marketplace. You know, I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's easy to start a business. The hard part is growing the business. And in this particular space, unlike other startup areas, for Internet of Things, it really is about creating an ecosystem. As we broke it down, we found 3 critical areas. One was that mentoring on the business side, but also the technology, especially since cognitive will be coming in. The capital, obviously, and we see VCs investing in this space. And then finally, how do you scale this globally? So if you go back to on-farm, you know, how do you get that solution not just to US farmers, but to farmers in Brazil or farmers in Africa? At the bottom, you see some companies like IBM are recognizing that in this Internet of Things space, these are the 3 requirements for that ecosystem. And you heard this morning from Mike that for Watson, we've invested 500 folks in what we call the Talent Hub to help you, our entrepreneurs, with cognitive, because it's so new, to help you optimize that space. We've set aside $100 million of funding. And finally, last but not least, we've really focused in on that scaling globally as part of the core expertise that IBM does. So let's take a look at why this matters so much. And I'll use the example of a connected car. If you remember back to the industries or the domains, one of the #1 areas of investment for Internet of Things will be in automotive. And if you think about the opportunity here alone, you can think about it not just for a sensor in a car, but for insurance companies to change their business model for pay-as-you-go. You think about opportunities for the city to optimize on congestion and parking. You think about it for the aftermarket of parts, alerting before there's a part failure. You think about it from a personal basis. How do I find my car? I parked it at a mall with 12 levels of parking. How do I schedule appointments with a dealer or someone who does maintenance on the car? Or I'm sure many of us have locked our keys in the car. How do I unlock those keys to the car? These are just a few opportunities that exist. And truly, probably one entrepreneur won't be able to solve all these problems. So a true ecosystem here across the board will be essential. So not only domain expertise of the automobile, but if you think about all the people in that ecosystem, maybe an insurance company, an aftermarket repair shop, cell phone companies as you call in. There's so many pieces that could make that solution so much more powerful that thinking about how you network is going to be really important. And I think TiCon is a great place to develop those relationships, start to network and connect the dots, because the entrepreneurs who build this strong ecosystem will have an advantage in the marketplace. So let me give you a couple other examples. We at IBM have a cloud workshop that will be going on tomorrow. One of the things that we've done is focused on helping entrepreneurs. So here you see the ability through the cloud to get access to different areas of sensors, data, that ability to analyze. So things like companies like Fitbit, who is a customer of ours, leverages that cloud. So it's not just about the device, but about how they're collecting that data, how they're analyzing that data, and how they're optimizing that data. So tomorrow in the workshop, one of the things you're going to see is some of the digital mentoring as part of that growth of that ecosystem, with a set of recipes that will be available, ways that you can leverage the device, but more importantly, leverage the data that comes from the device to really drive your success, not just of starting your company, but of growing your company as well. So those are our 3 major points that we want to focus in on. And we did work with lots of different partners to develop a simple marketecture that really showcases for you what we view as the successful architecture of the future. You see at the bottom, it really goes across all different types of assets and different types of devices. We do believe that the heterogeneous device area will be one that will be most advantageous to entrepreneurs. And then you can see this ability to collect and connect that data, then the ability to analyze the data and optimize the data that exists there will be crucial. But what will also differentiate will be that area of design. So how that end user experiences the entire solution that comes across. And then of course at the top, we talked about the domain-specific knowledge. That will be another competitive differentiator that will go on top of the ability to collect the data, analyze the data, and optimize the data. So in conclusion, what I really wanted to make sure is that today, as entrepreneurs, we're business people as well as technologists. So we've learned a lot today about the technology. But to really be a successful entrepreneur and startup in Internet of Things, there's a lot of those business areas that we need to be really thinking through. We talked a little bit about that focus area, understanding your domain knowledge, which industries are the hottest, where are they growing the fastest, understanding who we're selling to, which makes a big difference, and understanding that design is going to play a key role here, and the recommendation to seek out at least a member of your team that has that strength of design skill. Stanford D School, again, being a super strong opportunity area. The second area that we talked about was looking at the integrated solution. So many entrepreneurs come to us with sensors and the hardware piece, but in reality, what's going to cause you to grow, not just start fast, but end fast, will be that ability to collect that data, analyze the data, and optimize the data so that you can focus on the long-term profit and the growth of your company. And then the third area will be around building that ecosystem. I showed you one example of the connected car. If you have one element, you'll have a successful business. But if you can link in with a bigger ecosystem, your success will be longer term and higher margins. That will enable you to scale globally, but in order to do that, you will need help in the mentoring side, getting connected, which Tycon is a great to really accelerate your business growth. So hopefully this was helpful today. I can't wait to read the tweets to see where else you might need help. I would encourage you to come to our workshops, and I'll be around, and I'd love to talk to any and all of you about how you're going to grow your business, how you're going to get bold in this new era of the Internet of Things. Thank you very much.